How's it going, guys? Nathan from Nathan's DIY Garage, and today I'm going to show you some differences between an M54 and an M52 engine. Okay, so this is your run-of-the-mill M54. You guys are looking to buy a BMW, you're going to see a lot of these E46s on Craigslist for $500 to $1,000. A little bit broken. The drawback of the M54 is similar to the n52, depends on what year, is a plastic valve cover. Plastic valve cover, they'll eventually crack on you no matter how good you treat it. It's going to crack in the back, it's going to drip oil, and you're going to require a new valve cover. The problem with the new valve cover is they're very expensive, and if you buy a used one, it's going to be probably cracked also. If it's not cracked when they take it off the car, by the time post office or USPS gets done with it, it's going to be cracked. They're going to ruin it by throwing it around. The E39s have kind of a difficult radiator shroud. And another real common problem is the crankcase ventilation system, which is under the intake. This one's been deleted. It's not that big of a deal. Probably your most common issue on these is going to be the head bolt stripping out once the car has gotten overheated. Craigslist is packed full of these cars for cheap. Says overheating, needs head gasket. Never needs a head gasket. You know, it's always the threads are stripped out of the block because it screws into the aluminum or the head's actually cracked. And in comparison, n52 has some pretty expensive parts on it. A water pump for this car, 20 to 30 bucks. 40 bucks if you want OEM style. A water pump for n52, which is electric, is 150 to 200 bucks. Other than that, everything else is pretty cheap. The hoses are pretty cheap for these, thermostats cheap. These engines, there's a couple oil leak issues. That's pretty much all the money you're going to be spending. If the car is automatic, with n54, it's kind of the ZF box more than likely. If you keep the fluid change in that transmission, they're usually very reliable. That's pretty much it. I mean, these engines aren't that bad, but they can be a little picky in higher mileage. And then one fix to the plastic valve cover on n54. This n54 has the valve cover swap to the n56, which is a metal valve cover. The n52 guys, the early n52s have a metal valve cover, looks almost identical to this. You can swap that out. There's a little kit you can buy that'll require different bolts and different gasket, much like this one, to go to the metal. We'll take a real quick stop in at a 530 here, which has had the head bolt stripped. And here's the old time certs. It had them stripped. Put time certs in it, got overheated again. To pull these time certs to go on the next size bigger with this car right now. That'll be in future videos. Let's move on to this n52. This n52 is taken apart. If you see my last videos, you already know this car. These cars tend to be, this engine tends to be overall more reliable, especially in low mileage situations. It all depends on how the engine's been treated. This one's had some issues earlier in its life, which has resulted into lifter tick. The sensors are expensive. The centric shaft sensor, the centric shaft motor is expensive. If you have to change a camshaft like we do in this one, that's quite a bit of money. You notice the n52, the Vanel system, you don't have to set it. On the timing tools for this, instead of having to stack both gears and everything's got to be perfect and it's a big mess, like on n54, n52, you just have a jig that bolts in the front, has a peg sticking out, sticks in that hole right there, holds the two Vanels, the cam gears, and then it has a little bridge back here. It just locks on the camshaft and then the pin in the crankshaft, and that's it. That's the whole kit. A lot easier to time. You could actually get the cylinder head off these E90s a lot easier than you can in n54. n54, you kind of got to be MacGyver to get your hands in there to get the bolts out of the exhaust manifold. This one is not like that. However, n52 and n54 both, so the twin turbo and the single turbo, they both have problems with the oil filter housing gasket leaking. These could have problems with the oil pan gasket. That's not as common. And even though this cover is not on this engine, this does have a plastic cover and they do crack. The biggest difference being a older M54 engine, the valve cover is $300 plus. On the newer N52 engine like this, you can buy the whole valve cover with the gasket and everything for less than $200. Sometimes even as low as $160. But those deals are getting harder to find. And like I said previously, you can switch to the metal valve cover on these. Now, a big thing they have fixed with the newer style cars, they fixed a lot of the coolant system. Those older M54 and M52 TU engines, man, the coolant leaking problem on those things is real. Those things always leak coolant. It doesn't matter what you do. You constantly got to be checking the coolant. They kind of fixed this. Now, they went to a little different bottle. This bottle is similar to the V8 X5 bottle. And the coolant bottle just works a lot better. There's more capacity there, which is also good. And they fixed a lot of the other issues. Now, you can still have the hose dripping issue, but it's just not as common with these. And if you notice, on these newer engines, the fan clutch is gone. The fan clutch is no longer. And they finally went to the electric fan, the style like the E46 has. Some of the E46s will have electric fan and no clutch. The fan clutch, that never was a good idea. I don't know why they adopted that. That was just pretty much always a bunch of nonsense. And this one, there is no fan in the front. It's only the one right here. So E90, you can take out just a few bolts in the front here. You can take this duct out and you can slip the fan right up out of there, no problem at all. Now for the N52's dirty little secrets. The N52 unfortunately has a magnesium engine block. It has a aluminum cylinder head. The problem with having a magnesium block is the bolts can't be steel, they have to be aluminum, because aluminum and magnesium don't go together. So they have a different kind of gasket. The gasket has like a rubberized sealer stuff on it for the head gasket. On these, the torque is really low. I don't remember exactly what they were, 22 foot-pounds or ish, something like that. The problem is BMW, on a lot of the earlier ones, even some of the later ones, over-torque the aluminum bolts in the factory. And if you get the car just a little bit hot once, it'll break the bolts. Sometimes you don't even have to get the car hot. Now, for you guys like me, that's kind of good. If you're willing to fix that problem, maybe you could find one cheaper. The problem with the E90s and E60s, and even the 1 Series with the N52, the price is kind of all mixed up. The problem is, for an E90 with the N52, 06 to 2010-ish, that year span of it, you can't really find a deal on one. I've been looking at Craigslist quite a bit, and you would think of, for a car that would have this terrible of a problem, where it need $600, $700, or $1,000 worth of stuff to fix it, you think the price of the car would be cheap, but it's not. The problem these cars have is, it doesn't matter if it's broken or it runs fine, they start about $4,000 and go up. So it doesn't make sense. You really got to watch out when you're buying it. If you don't do the research and you see one that's broken or is ticking or has a transmission problem, you think, oh, it's $4,000, that's a good deal. When you run the book value on the car, hopefully not after you already bought it, you realize it's only worth $4,000. And then all of a sudden you need to put, if you got to pay somebody, it could be $5,000 or $10,000 worth of stuff, depends on what it needs. Doing it yourself, $700-800 is about the worst case on the E90 to be able to fix it. That's if it needs a different head and some other stuff. So just like anything else, do it yourself. Now, Craigslist is literally littered with E46s and E39s for $500 to $1,000. E53 X5s, you can find an earlier one of those for 1500 to 2000 that's broken. We're at a weird spot right now on E46 and E39s. The market's kind of weird. It seems in where I'm at, Missouri, 2,500 bucks is like max for one of those cars. So when people want $1,000 or $1,500, it looks like a good deal, but I don't know, an older car like that, it needs a lot of stuff, and you could fix it. Parts are so cheap, you could fix it money wise, but you don't want to spend weeks and weeks and months fixing 100 little problems because some jackass didn't keep the car up, which is usually what those cars are for that cheap. So, but if you're buying it as a hobby, you can make E39, E46 reliable, and E36s are kind of going up in value lately. E36s are pulling kind of what the E30s did. Everybody's racing them, everybody's tearing them up, and they're getting less plentiful. If you go on Craigslist, you don't see them as much. So that's going to drive the price up for a nicer E36. For a decent E36, the price is the same for E46 or E39. It's kind of weird, to be honest with you. So I don't know. That's my take on the m54 versus the n52. So take it for what you want. I mean, that's my opinion. That's what I see. I deal with these cars every day. And just beware when you buy stuff. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching.